John sat quietly, his arms tied behind his back. The room around him was strange dark stone walls with glowing symbols and tall alien guards watching his every move. The air smelled like dust and salt. He could feel many eyes on him, but the one gaze that made him nervous belonged to Commander Valera. Valera was tall and beautiful in an alien way. Her skin was smooth and pale gold, her eyes large and glowing blue, and her hair was long, braided with silver threads. She stood before him with curiosity, but also caution. Her people, the Dulnari, were desert dwellers who worshipped the great sandworms of their world. To them, the mighty Shai Hulud was sacred. But Valera's gaze today was not on John's face. She stared lower, confusion and wonder on her face. Then, in perfect English, she asked her question. "Human," she said slowly, tilting her head. "Why do you have a mini Shai Hulud between your legs?" The room fell silent. Even the guards, fierce and disciplined, looked at each other nervously. The translator device hanging from Valera's neck made sure John understood every word. But what she said made no sense to him. "A mini Shai Hulud," John repeated, blinking. "What are you talking about?" Valera stepped closer. Her elegant fingers pointed toward his waist. He was wearing torn clothing from his Capture a Simple jumpsuit, damaged in a crash landing. The alien guards had stripped his weapons and examined him carefully. But clearly they misunderstood something very basic about human anatomy. Valera narrowed her eyes. "The sacred sandworm is a creature of power and respect. In our temple, we see paintings of the old gods who walked the desert and carried Shai Hulud in their bodies. 'Tis written in prophecy, the one who carries the sacred worm shall change the fate of the desert." John swallowed. He realized now they were mistaking part of his human body for a small sandworm. "Oh no," he whispered. This was worse than he thought. Not only did these aliens think he was a threat, they believed he was carrying a holy creature, Valera. "Turn to her guards. Bring him to the temple," she commanded. "We must present him to the elders. The prophecy may be true. The human may be the one we have waited for." The guards hesitated, then saluted. They moved forward quickly and lifted John to his feet. He tried to speak calmly. "Commander Valera," he said, "this is a mistake. I'm just a human. I don't carry any sacred creature." "I can explain." But Valera raised a finger. "Silence, human. The prophecy must be honored. If you are lying, the temple will know." John's heart beat faster. He didn't know what this temple was, but it didn't sound like a friendly place. He was taken out of the chamber and led down a long hallway carved into rock, lit by glowing crystals. The walls were painted with scenes of giant sandworms swimming through endless dunes, and alien priests bowing before them as they walked. Whispers followed them. Other Dulnari saw John and covered their faces in fear and respect. Some even knelt as he passed. "What are they doing?" John asked quietly. Valera answered without looking at him. "They believe you may be the chosen one, the vessel of Shai Hulud. No human has ever walked our halls before, and no human has ever carried a sacred worm." John bit his lip. He needed to think fast. This situation was spiraling out of control. If he couldn't convince them soon, he might be killed in some strange ritual. But he also saw an opportunity. They respected him if they thought he was special. Maybe he could use that to survive. When they reached the great doors of the temple, Valera stopped. The doors were massive, made of black stone and covered in carvings of sandworms and stars. She turned to John and stared deep into his eyes. "You will speak before the elders," she said softly. "If you are truly the one in the prophecy, we will welcome you as a hero. But if you are not..." Her voice trailed off. But the meaning was clear. "Death," John nodded slowly. He had no choice. As the doors creaked open, a hot wind blew from inside, carrying the scent of incense and old dust. The guards pushed him forward. Inside the temple, the elders waited, sitting on stone thrones carved with symbols of the desert. The largest painting of all loomed behind them, a giant sandworm emerging from the sand. Its mouth open wide. Valera stepped forward and raised her hand. "Elders," she said proudly, "we have found him. The human who carries a mini Shai Hulud." The elders murmured. All eyes turned to John. John stood tall, though fear filled his chest. He forced a small smile and whispered under his breath, "This is going to be one hell of a misunderstanding." Journey to the temple. John's heart pounded as the heavy temple doors closed behind him with a deep, echoing boom. The alien elders sat in silence, their glowing eyes fixed on him. The stone hall was cold and dark, lit only by tall flames that danced and flickered. Strange symbols covered every wall, and in the shadows, more guards waited. Holding long curved spears, Commander Valera stood beside John, proud and serious. But inside, her mind was filled with questions. Was this human truly the one? Could he really carry a mini Shai Hulud as the prophecy spoke? Her people needed hope. This human might be the answer. An old elder finally spoke. His voice was rough and dry like the desert wind. "Take him to the shrine of the worm," he said. "The trial must begin before sunset." Without hesitation, the guards grabbed John by his arms and began pulling him toward another stone door. Valera followed closely, her sharp eyes watching every move John made. She still did not trust him, but curiosity burned inside her. John kept quiet, but his mind raced. He had survived worse situations before. He was a soldier, trained for danger. But this was unlike anything he had faced. These aliens were serious about their prophecy. They believed he was special because of a simple misunderstanding. He knew that if he didn't act carefully, he might not leave this place alive. The shrine of the worm was far from the temple, deep in the endless desert. The journey there would take hours, and the desert itself was filled with dangers. The wind howled as they led John outside, and the twin suns above burned the orange sand. John squinted at the horizon. Huge dunes rose and fell like waves of the sea. Strange creatures moved in the distance, their long shadows crawling across the sand. He could feel the heat against his skin. But he stayed calm. Valera mounted a tall desert beast, an animal with 6 legs and thick, golden fur. Its black eyes glowed softly as it snorted, ready to walk across the dunes. "Put the human on my beast," Valera commanded. "He must not die before the trial begins." The guards obeyed, lifting John up onto the animal behind Valera. Animal moved quickly, its steps silent on the sand as they traveled. Valera finally spoke to John again. "You must know something, human," she said over the wind. "Many have claimed to be the vessel of Shai Hulud before. All of them failed the trial. All of them died in the desert." John frowned. "What is this trial exactly? What do I have to do?" Valera turned her head slightly. "You must spend one night alone at the shrine of the worm. No weapons, no food, no water. If you survive until morning, then the prophecy is true. If you die, then you were just another imposter." John took a slow breath. This was worse than he expected. He looked around. The desert was alive with strange sounds. Sharp winds whistled through the dunes, and something howled in the distance. The suns were already beginning to set, painting the sky with red and purple light. But inside him, a quiet determination grew. He would survive. He had no choice. After several hours, they reached a lonely stone structure half buried in the sand. Shrine of the Worm. Ancient, cracked, and broken. It looked like it had stood in this desert for thousands of years. Strange symbols covered its walls. and a large statue of a sandworm stood at its entrance. Valera dismounted and pointed to the shrine. "This is where you will spend the night." She said coldly, "No one will help you. No one will watch you. If you live to see the twin suns rise again, you will be honored as the chosen one." The guards untied John's hands, but gave him no supplies. Valera's sharp gaze softened. Just a little as she leaned close to him. "Human, do not disappoint me," she whispered. Then she turned and walked back to her beast. The guards followed her, leaving John alone as night fell. The desert grew quiet. The wind stopped. The stars appeared above, shining bright and cold. John walked slowly into the shrine. Inside, it was even darker than outside, and he could feel the weight of ancient history pressing down on him. But something else was inside too. A soft sound. Something moving. John froze. Suddenly, a huge shadow slid across the wall. A real sandworm or some smaller desert creature was hiding in this shrine. John crouched low, ready to react. His training kicked in. Survive the night. That's all I need to do, he told himself. But outside, Valera watched from a hidden dune. She couldn't stop herself. She needed to see what this human would do. The test had begun. The prophecy and the creature, the air inside the shrine was dry and cold. John stood still, listening carefully. Somewhere in the darkness, something was moving soft, slow, and heavy. A strange hissing echoed off the old stone walls. His heart pounded, but he forced himself to stay calm. He didn't have any weapons. His only tools were his mind and his training. Stay low, stay quiet. Find out what's inside, he thought. Slowly, he moved deeper into the shrine. The walls glowed faintly with ancient symbols, glowing with a dim blue light. The symbols told stories of sandworms, giant beasts that ruled the desert and the Dulnari people's hearts. Suddenly, John felt something brush against his leg. He jumped back, but nothing was there. Only sand. But then, the sand shifted. From the corner of the room, a creature emerged. Not a giant sandworm, but a small one about the size of a dog. Its skin was rough and scaled, its mouth ringed with sharp little teeth. Its glowing eyes locked onto John. It hissed again, curling its body in a defensive coil. John froze. This must be one of their real mini Shai Hulud, he whispered. Was this what Valera and the elders believed he carried inside him? The irony almost made him laugh, but this was no time for humor. The creature seemed ready to strike. But then, something unexpected happened. The creature relaxed. Its head tilted. It moved closer to John, but not aggressively. Instead, it lowered itself before him, almost like it was bowing. John stayed perfectly still. The strange creature crawled forward and wrapped itself gently around his leg. It wasn't attacking, it was accepting him. Outside, hidden in the shadows, Valera was watching. She had climbed a high dune to secretly observe the human's trial. What she saw stunned her. The desert creature had never bowed to any Dulnari before. Her people had tried for centuries to tame these small sandworms, but none had ever submitted. And now this human who, they thought, carried a sacred worm was standing calmly as the creature curled itself around his leg like an old companion. Her heart raced. Could the prophecy be true after all? Inside the shrine, John crouched slowly and placed his hand gently on the creature's head. Its skin was rough but warm. It didn't move away. In that quiet moment, John understood something. This creature wasn't just testing him, was the test itself. The elders and Valera's people misunderstood their own prophecy. It wasn't about carrying a literal worm. It was about understanding the desert and its creatures, about respect. John smiled softly. "Well, little one," he whispered, "it looks like we both have something to prove tonight." He stayed in the shrine all night, sitting beside the creature. The cold winds howled outside, but inside, the two shared silent company as the twin suns rose the next morning. Their first rays breaking over the dunes, Valera returned to the shrine with her guards. When they stepped inside, what they saw left them speechless. John stood tall, alive and well. The desert creature rested beside him, calm and peaceful. Valera's breath caught in her throat. The prophecy. "It is true," one elder whispered, falling to his knees. John looked at Valera. For the first time, she met his gaze without suspicion, lonely, awe and curiosity. But before anyone could speak, Valera raised her hand. "Prepare him for the ceremony of honor," she commanded her guards. Then she turned to John and added with a teasing smile, "Human, you truly do carry a mini Shai Hulud, but it seems not in the way we believed." John laughed quietly. "Trust me," he said. "I've been trying to tell you that from the beginning." The guards began preparing John for the journey back to the temple, but deep inside, Valera felt a change. The human was no longer just a prisoner or a stranger. He was something more, and their story was only beginning. Secrets of the ceremony. John sat quietly on a stone platform inside the temple. The alien guards had removed his dusty jumpsuit and wrapped him in long desert robes, marked with golden symbols of the Dulnari people. The small desert creature, the so-called mini Shai Hulud, remained, curled around his feet, calm and still. Commander Valera stood near him, watching carefully. The elders moved slowly around them, lighting tall blue flames and chanting in their strange language. Their voices echoed through the temple's high ceilings. Ancient and powerful. But something didn't feel right. John could sense it. The elders acted like they were preparing an honor ceremony, but there was tension in their movements. Whispers passed between them. Their eyes darted toward John, but they looked away quickly, as if hiding something. Valera noticed it too. She stepped closer to the oldest elder. "Why do you hesitate?" she asked, her voice low. The elder's face was hard and cold. "The prophecy speaks of one more test," he said. "This human cannot be honored yet." John heard that sentence. His stomach tightened. "One more test?" he asked carefully. "What kind of test?" The elder stepped forward and raised a long staff carved from desert stone. "You must speak to the great Shai Hulud itself," he said firmly. "Not the small creature who followed you. The real one, the ancient sandworm who sleeps below these sands." The temple guards moved. Quickly they began unlocking a massive stone door behind the altar. Sand poured in from behind it, and a deep rumble shook the ground. John's eyes widened. "You have got to be kidding me." Valera grabbed his arm and pulled him aside, whispering fast, "This is madness. The great Shai Hulud hasn't appeared in 1,000 years. Even our strongest warriors have never survived in its presence." John met her gaze calmly. "Do I have a choice?" Valera's lips tightened. She hated this decision, but her people demanded it. "This is our law," she whispered. John nodded slowly. The guards stepped back as the heavy stone door fully opened, revealing a dark tunnel that led deep underground. The elders chanted louder. Valera turned back to John one last time. "If you truly are the one," she said softly, "you will return. If you are not, this tunnel will be your tomb." John gave her a half smile. "That's very comforting." The small desert creature that had bonded with him hissed softly and slithered forward. Without hesitation, it entered the dark tunnel first. John followed. The tunnel was cold and damp, the air thick with dust. Strange markings glowed faintly on the walls, symbols of ancient Dulnari history. Every step John took echoed in the silence. As he moved deeper, the air grew heavy and warm. A strange hum vibrated in the stone around him. And then he heard. It's a deep, slow breath. The breath of something massive. John froze. Ahead of him. In the shadows, he could just make out the shape of an enormous creature. A sandworm. Its body was as wide as a house, its mouth ringed with hundreds of sharp, glistening teeth. But it was not attacking. It was still. Watching John step forward, every muscle tense. Think, what do they expect? He remembered Valera's words. The prophecy speaks of one who carries the worm, who understands its soul. He knelt slowly. Then, very gently, he bowed his head toward the great beast. Nothing happened for a moment. Then, the sandworm began to move. Slowly, carefully, it lowered its enormous head. So close that John could feel its warm breath wash over him. John kept perfectly still. Eyes closed. A low rumble passed through the creature's body, but it was not a growl. It was a greeting. Behind him, Valera and the elders watched from the entrance. The oldest elder gasped in disbelief. The prophecy. It is true, he whispered. Valera's heart raced. She had doubted, but now, she felt awe and respect. This human had done what none of her people could. Inside the tunnel, John slowly opened his eyes. The great sandworm's head was just inches away, but it had accepted him. He smiled. Nice to meet you too. Big guy, he whispered. The sandworm slowly backed away, disappearing into the sand without a sound. John stood, turned, and walked back toward the entrance. When he stepped out of the tunnel, the temple fell silent. Valera stepped forward and smiled for the first time, not a cold or suspicious smile, but one of respect. You have done the impossible, she said. The elders bowed their heads, for the first time in Dulnari history. A human was now part of their legend. The desert trial of Trust the Temple was still. All eyes were on John as he stepped out from the dark tunnel. He had survived the impossible. He had stood before the great Shai Hulud and returned alive. But John wasn't celebrating. He could feel that something was wrong. The alien elders whispered among themselves. Their faces showed respect, but also fear. The guards looked uneasy. Even Valera, who had finally begun to trust John, seemed troubled. John turned to her quietly. What's going on? He asked. Valera's glowing blue eyes narrowed. There is one last tradition, one that I did not tell you about. John raised an eyebrow. Another one. Valera looked away for a moment, then met his gaze. This tradition is older than the prophecy itself. The one who survives the trial of the worm must face the desert trial of trust, together with a Dulnari. John frowned. Together? With you. Valera nodded slowly. You and I must go into the deep dunes, she explained. Far beyond where even our strongest hunters go. We must stay there for one full day and one full night. No weapons, no food, no shelter. Only trust. John took a deep breath. Trust. Between me and you, he said softly. Valera nodded again. John hesitated. But inside, he understood this was not just a test of survival, but a test of whether a human and a Dulnari could truly stand together. The elders feared humans, even after what he had done. This ancient ritual was their way of proving that he wasn't a threat. John offered a half smile. All right, Commander, let's do this. The next morning, Valera and John left the temple. The small sandworm creature, who had bonded with John, followed silently, but soon stopped at the edge of the sacred dunes. Watching them disappear into the vast desert, the sun blazed overhead. Twin shadows stretched behind them as they walked deeper into the unknown dunes. At first, they said nothing. The wind howled around them, picking up sand and biting their skin. Valera kept her eyes on the horizon, but John could sense that even she was unsure of this place. Hours passed. The heat grew worse. Their robes offered little protection, but neither of them complained. At sunset, they stopped at the top of a tall dune. From here, John could see the endless desert stretch in all directions. There was no temple, no city, no life, just endless sand and sky. Valera sat down slowly. She looked tired for the first time. John sat beside her. He pulled the cloth from around his face and looked up at the two moons rising in the sky. "It's beautiful out here," he said quietly. Valera smiled faintly. Beautiful and deadly. They sat in silence for a while until Valera finally spoke again. "Why did you really come to this planet?" she asked suddenly. John thought for a moment. "Accident," he admitted. "I wasn't supposed to land here. My ship crashed. I was just trying to survive." Valera looked at him carefully. "And yet you have changed everything," she said. John gave a small laugh. "Yeah, all because of a misunderstanding." Valera's smile widened. "Slightly, the mini Shai Hulud misunderstanding," she teased. They both laughed. For the first time, there was no tension between them, only understanding. But their moment of peace didn't last long. Suddenly, from behind a dune, a group of large desert beasts appeared, creatures with sharp teeth and thick armored skin. They growled and hissed as they approached, hungry and aggressive. Valera stood quickly. "We have no weapons," she said urgently. John stood beside her, heart racing. "Then we improvise." The beasts circled them slowly. John reached for a handful of sand and threw it into the face of the nearest beast. It roared and lunged. Forward, Valera grabbed a sharp stone from the ground and swung it hard, striking the beast's head. John dodged another creature and used his strength to push it off balance. Together, they fought back without swords or guns, just instincts. And trust. As the fight went on, something amazing happened. The small sandworm creature who had followed John appeared suddenly from the shadows. It lunged at one of the beasts, biting hard. The desert itself seemed to come alive to protect them. The other beasts hesitated, confused and fearful. Then they ran. Valera stood panting, looking at John with wide eyes. "You could have run," she said. "But you've stayed. You fought with me." John smiled. "Yeah, we're in this together, Commander." Valera nodded slowly. "The trial is over," she said softly. "You have passed." Above them, the twin moons shone bright, and the desert wind calmed at that moment. A new trust was born between a human and a Dulnari warrior. And far away, in the temple, the elders felt it too. The prophecy was no longer a story from old carvings, it was happening now. The elders, fear the desert, was quiet as John and Valera walked back toward the temple. The small sandworm creature slithered beside them, loyal and peaceful. The wind was soft now, and the twin suns were just rising, painting the dunes in gold. Valera felt different. For the first time in her life, she had trusted an outsider. John was no longer just the human prisoner to her. He was a friend, an equal. He had fought beside her, protected her, and survived the harsh desert with her. But she also felt something heavy, the knowledge that the elders would not easily accept this when they finally reached the temple gates. The guards opened them slowly, watching closely as John and Valera stepped inside. A crowd had gathered, Dalian faces staring, curious but nervous. The elders waited on the temple steps, their long robes flowing in the morning breeze. The oldest elder stepped forward, his expression cold and hard. "You have returned," he said flatly. "Together." John nodded calmly. Valera spoke with pride. "We completed the desert trial of trust. The prophecy is fulfilled." The crowd murmured, but the elder raised his staff and struck the stone 3 times. "The prophecy is fulfilled," he repeated. But that word hung in the air like a dark shadow. "But we still fear him," the elder said loudly, pointing his staff at John. "He is a human. He is an outsider. He could destroy us if we trust him too much." The crowd fell silent. John felt anger rise in his chest, but he stayed quiet. His eyes locked on the elder. Valera stepped forward bravely. "You cannot deny the truth," she said. "He faced the great Shai Hulud and survived." He completed. "The trust trial at my side. He fought for me and for our honor." The elder's face darkened. "The old ways are not easily broken, Commander Valera. Your feelings cloud your mind. You see this human as a friend, but can we trust his kind? Can we trust their machines, their weapons, their armies?" John took a deep breath. He knew this moment was important. If he stayed silent, they might reject him more, even kill him. So he stepped forward and spoke, loud enough for all to hear. "You fear me because I'm different," he said calmly. "But I came here by accident. I didn't ask for this prophecy. I didn't demand your trust. I earned it with my actions." The crowd listened carefully. The elder's staff trembled slightly, but he stayed quiet. John continued, "Look at your own history. How many of your people have survived what I did? How many have fought beside Valera in the desert and lived?" He turned to Valera. "Commander Valera knows the truth. She risked her life for me. I risked my life for her. That is trust." Then he looked back at the elder. "If you still reject me, I will go. I don't want to stay where I'm not welcome." The crowd began to murmur again, but this time, the sound was different. Many of them looked at Valera and nodded. Some even looked at John with respect. Valera raised her voice. "If the elders reject him, then they reject me too. I will leave this temple with him." Gasps filled the air. The elder's face froze. He had not expected this. A long pause followed, then the elder lowered his staff slowly. "Very well," he said. "The prophecy has been fulfilled. The choice belongs to the people now." Valera smiled and stepped closer to John. The crowd began to cheer quietly, then louder, until the entire temple square was filled with voices of support. For the first time, John felt something deep and real. He was no longer just a visitor. He was part of this world, but deep in the shadows. Not everyone was happy. One of the younger elders watched them both closely, his eyes cold. He turned away silently, disappearing into a side passage. John didn't see him, but Valera noticed. She leaned closer and whispered, "Not all of them are convinced. We must be careful. The real danger may not be over." John gave a small nod. "I understand," he said softly. As the crowd celebrated, far away in the desert, a large sandstorm began to rise. A new storm was coming, not just of wind and sand, but of politics, betrayal, and secrets. The hidden enemy the temple was alive with. Celebration. Alien voices filled the air, singing old songs in honor of John's survival. Banners flew. Valera stood proudly beside John, her eyes shining as she watched her people cheer. But deep inside, she felt uneasy. She remembered the look in the young elder's eyes, the one who had slipped away when John was accepted. That look was full of hatred and fear, and she was right to worry. Far beneath the temple, in secret tunnels carved by ancient hands, the young elder knelt before a strange machine, a relic of a forgotten time. This machine was dangerous, a weapon left buried long ago. The young elder spoke softly to himself. "This human is a threat," he hissed. "If our elders will not stop him, I will." He pressed his hand against a glowing panel. The machine hummed to life. Above, in the temple square, the ground began to tremble. John felt the vibration under his feet. He looked at Valera quickly. "What is that?" Before she could answer, a loud crack split the air. Part of the temple wall collapsed. Dust and stone rained down as a massive metal machine rose from beneath the temple floor. It was ancient, older than the Dulnari civilization itself. Its body was covered in rust, but its eyes glowed red with power. Long mechanical arms reached out, crackling with energy. The crowd screamed and scattered in fear. The young elder appeared beside the machine, shouting angrily, "Fools! You trust this human, but he is a danger to us all. I will destroy him and all who support him." Valera stepped in front of John, drawing a curved blade. "John, this is a weapon from before even our oldest records. We don't know how to stop it." John didn't hesitate. He moved forward, pulling Valera with him behind a fallen column. "We can stop it," he said quickly, "but I'll need your help hand. I'll need him." He pointed at the small sandworm creature, who slithered toward them, fearless. Valera's eyes widened. "The mini Shai Hulud." John nodded. "This machine was buried underground," he explained, fast. "This creature lives beneath the sand. Maybe it knows how to destroy what's down there." Valera understood immediately. "Then let's give it a chance," she said. Together, they worked fast, while the machine fired energy blasts at the crowd. John and Valera climbed up the side of the broken temple wall, getting closer to the machine's core. The small sandworm followed, its glowing eyes focused on the humming metal. The young elder saw them and shouted, "Stay back! You cannot win." But John didn't stop. He reached the top of the machine, where a glowing energy core pulsed. He picked up the small sandworm and placed it directly on the core. The creature hissed it suddenly. It sank its sharp teeth into the core itself. Sparks exploded. The machine screamed a strange, metallic cry and began to collapse. Its glowing red eyes dimmed. The ground shook one last time, then all fell silent. The machine was dead. The crowd slowly returned, stunned. They looked at Jonand, then at Valera. The young elder had disappeared, lost in the chaos. Valera stepped forward, raising her voice. "Today, the human saved us again," she said proudly. "Not by force, but by trust between him and the creature we feared." The people cheered, louder than before. John stood quietly, breathing hard. He looked at Valera and smiled. "You were right," he said softly. "It was never about what I carried between my legs. It was about what I carried in my heart." Valera laughed for the first time in days, a warm, honest laugh. "Yes," she agreed. "But still, that mini Shai Hulud will be part of your legend forever." John shook his head with a grin. The small sandworm curled around his boot once more. Peaceful and loyal. From that day on, the Dulnari and humans became Alazand, the story of the human who carried the mini Shai Hulud, became a legend across both worlds. A legend of trust, respect, and the power of unexpected friendship.